Welcome to episode 346, the DFO Rundown presented by Bet365. Download the app today and use the promo code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N, to get on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Jason Gregor. Welcome in Frank Seravalli as it's our final pod before Christmas break. Frank, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. It's perfect ODR weather here still, so that's nice. And,
it's actually it's perfect ODR weather here. This is about as cold as it's been in a long time.
Yeah, so it might get even too warm today where the ice gets a little slushy.
So you're saying it might be warmer there than it is here?
Yeah, well, this morning
today it's minus 10 Celsius here, 15 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's warm. It's warmer here. It's like -2 right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be this way for the next week, like not too cold, be perfect tobogganing weather. It's unreal. So sledding, it's another thing I learned about many years ago. I met some people when I was on a trip, and in Cincinnati, they call a toque a toboggan. And I was blown away because we were having a conversation about how cold it was. I was like, well, you plug your car in. They didn't get that part. And I was like, well, yeah, obviously you're wearing a toque all the time. And I remember she kind of looked at me like she was straining. After a while, she's like, why do you wear a toboggan? Like, why would you wear a toque on your head? I'm like, well, where else would you wear it? And I didn't know that in that area, they call it toque. That's what they call a toboggan. I'd never heard that before. I don't know if that's just one area of the United States, but it was a rather interesting conversation.
So let me ask you this funny question. Have you ever gone snowshoeing?
Yes.
That is like the new thing. Everyone is snowshoeing.
Oh, in Philadelphia?
No, like in general, people are going on trips and going snowshoeing.
Yeah. I honestly haven't done it since like junior high, but that's when
Sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, it's just an easier way.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like to go out and walk in the snow for hours? No,
yeah,
I wouldn't.
But the difference is it's like you're on top of the snow because you don't sink down.
Okay.
So
I get the idea of it, but like I don't want to go walk in the snow for hours.
It's like a new way to walk. Yeah. But I love walking, but I haven't done.
Who thought that was a good idea or fun?
Well, but they made it back. The indigenous made the snowshoes to allow to get across, because you got to remember when you go on a hunt, you'd have to go for miles and miles to go get your food. And
right.
So they created something that would stay above the snow, right? Because you try to walk a mile when your boots are sinking in the snow, you're bagged, you're gassed.
I'm sorry. That's not registering with me.
Oh, well, dude, it's how you weren't wheeling across on a skidoo, to go on the hunt for the buffalo and the caribou. It's just not how it was working.
I'm not picking it up as a hobby in 2024. I'm just not.
Oh, wow. People like to exercise. They're like, hey man, we can, like, people do, there's lots of weird exercise, but that one's actually efficient if you like to be in the snow. Like deep, but you got to have an area where there's like lots of deep snow. Otherwise, I'm like, just wear shoes.
Yeah, I don't know. Not picking that one up.
So you've never snowshoed then?
No. And I don't really have any designs on it.
Yeah. Well, maybe next time you go to Jasper, we'll send you on a snowshoeing. What about have you ever been on like a dog sleigh?
No.
Oh, buddy.
I'm seen it, but I haven't done it.
That is unreal. Like they have the tours when you can go to I know they have them in Canmore and in Banff. Maybe they have them in Jasper. I don't know. I've never been there, or I've never been on one there, but they have them, and they're unbelievable. Like you are flying, like those dogs, you're sitting on the back of the sled. And if you want, you can stand up and help the guy drive it. It's unreal. Like I highly recommend that if you've never done it.
All right. That one I could put on the list.
Oh, definitely put it on the list. So my son was going nuts. So it's like they're so amped up, like that's their job. Like they're just howling. It's crazy until you started pulling. Because when we were there's probably, I don't know, 10 sleds, so 80 dogs, maybe 80, maybe 90. I think there's 8 or 9 per sled, and it was whew, you need earplugs there, buddy. It was like it was louder than some sporting events I've been to. No joke.
Wow.
So, hey, let's get to. Hey, there's lots of howling right now in Vancouver. So the man, we were talking about the Rangers and Days of Our Lives being the big soap opera. Well, right now it's a JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. They don't get along, and both guys have to trot out and be like, "No, we get along." Like, first of all, if they didn't get along, do you think they're going to publicly say we don't get along? Like, so I'm not really sure the purpose of the question, but it definitely seems like as the world turns. I'm trying to think of soap opera names. That would be another one. Another World,
Restless.
Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives. Oh, some classics.
Honestly, I guess the part that I'm struggling with is this isn't new. And to my knowledge, nothing has happened here this season that has sent this boiling over. Pettersson and Miller have played together since 2019-20.
Yeah.
On any team that you've ever been on, does every player get along with every other player?
No.
Not when there's 23 guys there. And not when there's two people of vastly different personalities and backgrounds. So, me personally, the way that this just absolutely blew up out of control this week, where all of a sudden the question in Vancouver became, who are you picking, one or the other? I'd be like, look, could it eventually get to that point? Is it so toxic that it's tearing apart the team? I guess, but I think the biggest loser in that situation is the Vancouver Canucks. And if these two guys can't figure it out to work together, then you could just write off this season and probably a chunk of next. Because I don't even know what to say. It feels like it went from 1 or 2 on the volume level to 11 in the span of 2 weeks. All of a sudden, this question of who stays and who goes, I just don't really understand how it got to that point, because these two guys haven't liked each other for years. 4 years it goes back. And look, Miller, they probably both need a little bit of a change in terms of how they handle things and a maturation. Just from speaking to players in Vancouver, Miller can be hard on everyone. He's got a hard edge to him. He desperately wants to win and compete. He's the heartbeat and engine of that team. And Pettersson, on the other hand, can be sarcastic and grating and someone that at times when things don't go his way, sulks. And you could see just on the outset how those two personalities would clash. But again, here's what I come back to. Nothing is new here. Nothing's new. Yeah. This has been ongoing for years. So unless something happened that I don't know about, and certainly possible, but I think at this point, given all that's been around it, it probably would have come out at this point. I don't think that there's a ton of new ground here.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of was that, last year and even in the previous year, okay, maybe they're not sitting there singing Kumbaya together and hanging out, but they're productive players. And now their production, both of them, they're below a point a game player this year. And so that's, and Vancouver's season isn't going the way they like. So you know how it is, Frank, sometimes. Well, clearly now it has to be the issue. When we were winning and scoring, then it's not an issue. And I agree with you. It seems odd. And I think that they might clash at times, but lots of teams have been successful where guys don't all get along great. Some would say I remember years, everybody glamour. I've seen team. Oh, our group is great. We're super tight, and you're 29th in the league. Like, just because you're super tight doesn't mean anything, right? Like, yeah, it would be nice if everybody got along great, but it's
the most overblown thing that we hear at the end of every season. Such a tight team. Like, yeah. Okay. I mean, sure.
Yeah. Closest team ever. Yeah. Well, you didn't win. So it's great to be on a close team, but that doesn't guarantee success. And on a team that not everybody gets along with, I know there's been teams where guys didn't get along with and they won because the mature people put their differences aside when the games are on. They might not go to dinner. They might not hang out. They might not invite each other. If they have a Christmas dinner, that's fine. But when the game's on, they play hard. And I think that's probably the issue right now in Vancouver, why it's coming to the top of the surface again, is because the Canucks, while they're in a playoff spot, I think they're below where they were hoping to be.
Yeah, and I think then everyone wants to try and find some reason as to why JT Miller missed time. We got to have some explanation. JT isn't giving it to us, so let's just jump to a conclusion that this is what's behind it, or this is part of it.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, like, Pettersson, for sure, what has he got? 26 points in 33 games. Like, he's on pace for not even 70 points this year. He's an $11.5 million player. He's got 8 goals. Like,
it's not even Garland. The points make it sound better than it is, I think.
Yeah.
Just from an eye test perspective.
Yeah. He needs to be way better. Let's start there.
But it goes back to the playoffs, and it goes back to the lack of confidence, and it goes back to the supposed injury that occurred that he tried to play through that hampered him so much that the Canucks didn't even keep him out of the lineup for a game. I mean, there's a whole lot to unpack on both sides here. And just to be clear, like, when I say any of those things, I don't want it to make it sound like I'm favoring anyone or one person's right or one isn't. I have no idea as to the actual nuances, but that's how their personalities were described to me by teammates, that you can understand. It helps put some context to what's been happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. So we'll see. In the Canucks in the month of December have the 18th highest points percentage. They're 4-3-4. Only won 4 of 11 games. So that would probably be a big reason why there's lots of frustration there. Now, in the month of December, and teams will have, and this is not like a terrible funk at all, but on November 30th, the Dallas Stars were in 5th place in the West, and they wake up today and they're out of the playoffs. They're 5-5 in their last 10, Frank. Any concern about the Dallas Stars?
Not really. I mean, they did have a really big chunk of their lineup, and he was having a great start to the season in Tyler Seguin with that injury.
Yep.
I think that's probably a little bit underrated as a storyline. Like, I don't know that enough people have talked about that injury. And, you take a north of a point per game guy out, that's going to hurt. They're the best defensive team in the league. They've given up the fewest goals against, and they're a very average scoring team. So when you take that player out, that's probably going to impact you. They're an outside the playoff team offense, 17 of 32 today. So look, am I worried that this are they going to find a way and figure it out? Yes. I think they've also gone so deep in the playoffs in recent years that it's probably really difficult to get geared up for stretches of time during the regular season. But to me, even though they haven't done it and won it, they've got a little bit of Tampa Bay Lightning vibes, don't they? A team that's full of vets, that has a good goalie, that has been to and knows what it takes to get to that level to win. And yet it probably impacts their regular season as a result because it's hard to get geared up.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just, with Utah on a roll and Calgary stuck with them. Calgary actually so far in December has 1 more point than Dallas. They were tied on November 30th, and now through the month of December, 22 days, they've actually gained 1 more point. And it just, it extends the playoff race. Utah has gotten back in the playoff race with a great December. They got only Edmonton and Vegas have a better points percentage so far in the month of December than Utah has. Ottawa has put themselves back in the race. They got the best points percentage in the East, 8-2-1. Allmark sounds like a little bit of a tight back during the game in Edmonton. That's obviously something to monitor.
That speaking of
over the
back,
break.
that sends a shiver up your spine if you're the Sens.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You hope that it was just, you know what, felt something. We're gonna shut them down. We got they don't play again until Saturday. They've won 3 of 4 so far in this 9-game road trip. It's a great start, but yeah, you don't want, because he's been unbelievable for them.
I mean, so since December 1st, and I'm not going to include the last game, but 7-0-1, 9.59 save percentage, 8 games, 2 shutouts. I mean, that's almost flawless.
Yeah. Well, even in the first period. And so I didn't even look. I don't think he gets the loss last night because it was tied when he left the game. So
no, he does not. He gets a no decision.
No. So he stays 7-0-1. Numbers are still very good. And yeah, Ottawa's, you know what, they look like the one team, Frank, at the start of the year of all those teams, Detroit and Montreal and Buffalo, that you thought, hey, they'll take a step. Well, so far, nearing the halfway point of the season, Ottawa's at least taken a step because they found themselves in a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think they deserve a lot of credit for sticking with it, because not all that dissimilar to Buffalo, the noise was getting pretty loud in Ottawa for a period of time. Remember? I mean, they were right in the middle.
Soft tampering, Frank. Soft tampering. That's the change for the for the Senators. The soft tampering.
Do you buy that, or are you just saying that in jest?
No, but ever since, Michael Andlauer came out, and I think, he just showed his passion, and I think publicly just said, hey, Brady Tkachuk, you're going nowhere. We don't want you to go anywhere. We want you. And in a weird, I don't know if that rallies the troops or not. Allmark playing great, obviously, is what matters. But sometimes there's the weirdest thing that teams rally around, Frank. You know how it is. And ever since then, though, the Sens have played very well. I think it's more the play of Allmark than anything else, for being honest. But that's the fun storyline.
Well, the truth is, though, before Allmark started playing really well, the Sens had defended much better this season than they were being given credit for. A lot of people were saying, oh, same old, same old. And then I saw people coming at Travis Green at one point saying, oh, look, he didn't have his teams ready to play in Vancouver. Same thing happening in Ottawa. And it's like, what a garbage narrative that was. This team, they were playing top 10 defense before Allmark started playing well. If Allmark starts making more saves, all of a sudden, that defense is going to look even better. To me, they have way more attention to detail.
Oh, 100%. And they're doing it without one of their better defensemen in Zub, which has been very good. Jensen's helped that team a lot. And I do think that Sanderson misses Zub a little bit. As a younger player too, you'll have ups and downs, but I think when he comes back, that'll help them. Travis Hamonic has stepped up and had to play top 4 minutes for them, and I think done a really admirable job. They got depth scoring. Their top guys are producing, their goaltenders. So, you know what? They look now like a legit playoff contender. And if you look at the Eastern Conference race right now, Tampa and Ottawa, and heck, I know there's still the points percentage are different because they played more games, but even the Penguins are finding a way to at least stick around. I think both of us agree that they'll probably stick around and miss, which is like the worst thing for them. But the New York Rangers, for a variety of reasons, remain in the news, Frank. They continue to struggle. The Rangers on November 30th they were in 6th place. They had 27 points.
Back it up. Go back to November 24th.
Yeah, probably even better. They were 3rd or 4th, right?
That's November 24th is the day that Chris Drury sent out the memo.
The memo. Okay, I could look
Sunday morning, and that's right there when word came out on Monday, the 25th, November 25th, Thanksgiving week. That's when the death spiral started.
Okay, so I'll look on that day. The Rangers, they were 7th at 25 points in the East, and now they're 11th. And showing no signs of really getting it turned around at all.
Now they're below the Flyers and the Penguins, and back
the Senators.
The Sens.
Yeah,
and they're tied with the Islanders and 1 point ahead of the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, like it's ugly.
It's as ugly as it's probably worse than it was for the Sabres. The Sabres are worse. That same day, November 24th, the Sabres and 25th, the Sabres were 3rd in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
They are now 16th out of 16 by a wide margin in the East. And they are dead last, 32nd in the NHL.
Yeah. Like the Rangers have the exact same points percentage as the Penguins and the Flyers right now. They got 35, 34, and 33 points because they have games in hand. So that would help them jump them, but it's not looking good. And then Matt Rempe comes back and, runs Heiskanen from behind. I watched that play, I don't know how many times. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? He never turned, he being Heiskanen, he's going straight in. And not only do you elbow him in the head, you hit him directly from behind and he gets an 8-game suspension. So here's my question. It's two-parter. Is it's worthy. Not a question statement. I think it's worthy of a suspension, but is this the NHL trying to send a strong message to hits from behind, Frank, or is it the NHL simply just sending a strong message to Matt Rempe?
I think it's more sending a strong message to Matt Rempe. When you have more ejections than points scored in the NHL, that's probably a reason to tone it down.
Yeah.
I mean, the last suspension was, that was the sort of warning shot. And this one was, hey, man, you better get your act together, because this one also cost him. As a repeat offender, Matt Rempe he's forfeiting $80,000. That sounds funny to say, like, oh, 80,000, what's that to an NHL player? But
it's 10th of his salary, man.
Yeah. And that's because he's docked 1/10 of the games. Yeah. And his salary is actually going to be much less than that because he's been up and down from the minors and he's only played 5 games this year. It might cost him money this year. Like just FYI on the monetary part. I know everyone glosses over that, but that's actually a huge hit to the wallet for Matt Rempe.
Oh, it's massive. It's a massive hit. And thing is, Rempe can skate. He's just got to play smarter. You want to play physical, great. Stop running, guys. You don't need. You're 6 foot. What are you jumping at anybody for? Right? Like, give me a break here. Somebody in the range is going to say, kid, you'll be out of the league. Like, trust me, the league doesn't need Matt Rempe. The league survives when Lemieux and Gretzky's and Lindstrom's retire. Trust me, not having Matt Rempe, I ain't going to miss him for a second.
Well,
and I get you want to add energy.
I'll argue with you on that because, and I know what you're saying, and you're totally right in terms of protecting, the star players, of course. But I do think there's a reason why he became such a fan favorite in New York. I mean, he at some point reached cult hero status.
Well, he was fighting. I get it. There's nothing wrong with it. But all I'm saying
he's crossed the line and he has to find a way to harness it better. And he's, you know what? He's always going to be a target because of his size. Every single thing that he does is going to be magnified. And even the clean hits that he makes because of his size are going to look dirtier than they are.
That's fair. That's totally valid. But, he'll have to, battle against that. But like that Heiskanen hit was so blatantly obvious.
Yes. Like that was there wasn't even like any debate on social media. It was just like, okay, how many games is he getting?
Yeah. But the problem is if it's not Matt Rempe delivering the hit, then geez. And that to me is the problem. Hits from behind. We've seen it. You saw Eichel on Ekholm. You've seen ones in Vancouver. Quinn Hughes. Now he actually got a penalty for his, but there's been other ones, and I actually spoke to 2 GMs last week and just asked them flat out. They're like, "Well, it used to be talked about, but not as much." And I'm like, "Well, why?" And he honestly, neither one could give me an answer. I said, "Like, what are you guys waiting for? Somebody gets seriously injured?" Because if you continue to allow it, and the history here shows you can get rid of it. Headshots, Frank, in early 2000s, even into the early part of the salary cap era, were still a fairly, I wouldn't say obvious part of the game, but they occurred fairly regularly. Well, now in the last 5-6 years, when you have a headshot, it's obvious and it's suspension worthy. Like they basically eliminated the chicken wing. They basically eliminated the blatant direct contact to the head first. Why? Because they came down hard on players and said enough's enough. The players adapted because they're the best in the world, and they'll be like, okay, I can play the game without taking someone's head off. Well, they can play the game without hitting guys from behind, but the league keeps allowing it. Like, I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, they keep allowing it. I think they've done a great job cracking down. No,
Not on hits from behind.
okay.
Right? Like they happen way too often, some unpenalized, or you might get a penalty here and there, Frank, but how do they crack down on hits to the head? Major suspensions.
Yeah.
And so is Rempe the starting point? I'm with you. I probably agree. It's more Matt Rempe.
Yeah.
But it's Christmas, so I'll believe that positive things will occur. And
See,
the NHL
he does have a heart. He does.
Yeah. And that the NHL will be like, you know what? Our game can be played. But now I know that they say, hey, if you turn your back to the last second, because guys were doing that. I'm like, okay, well then penalize the guy. Right? Just penalize the guy. Because we can tell the obvious ones. Heiskanen, some people is like the odd, clown is like, oh, well, you have your back to the play. I'm like, no, not at that point when the guy behind you has 6 strides to say, oh, there's his numbers. I shouldn't hit him. It's when you're both going, Frank, and in the last second, the guy turns and he's up against the boards and it looks bad. Well, I'm like, well, if you're dumb enough to do that, then away you go. It's like there used to be diving. Now you get penalized for diving, right? That never used to really be a thing. And they just said, okay, enough's enough. And you even get certain warnings now that go public. Like Jeff Skinner earlier this year got fined for embellishment. It wasn't even a penalty. They just thought he went down too easy in a game against the Rangers. And that was his second case. And so guess what's happened since then? Haven't seen him go down, right? Like there are ways to get players' attention. Just ask any parent. At some point, you got to crack the whip, Frank.
Yeah.
That's 1. That's 2. And if you keep saying that's 3 and don't do nothing, your kids are like, well, this guy's a softie. Whatever. I'll do what I want. And then eventually you crack down and now the kids listen.
Yeah. Human nature.
It's totally true. So they definitely could do it. Let's bring in Tyler Yaremchuk to the pod. Ty, how you doing?
What's going on, boys? Merry Christmas. Almost Christmas Eve. Feels like it snuck up on me a little bit here. I woke up this morning and was like, probably should have gotten most of my shopping done this weekend.
I was just going to say, you're not done. You're not done shopping, are you?
I got like 2 more stops to make. I got it under control, I swear. Anyways, fill in the blank.
Wait, when you live in Edmonton, do you do everything you can to avoid going to West Ed Mall?
Like the plague. Avoid it.
How annoying is it to just park there?
Well, I do my show from there every day, right? Our studio is right at the mall. And there's a few days where parking's tough, but I'm not going to say publicly where it is, but I found one area in the mall where I park and it's never a problem. So it's like a hidden little secret. But I
feel like something like Costanza figured out, like not telling anyone about this.
You want to avoid the mall on the 23rd. And because there's like Tyler Yaremchuks all across the city. People who have waited. Now, I think it's more of a 20-year-old thing because I used to, I would live for it. Yeah, I'm going Christmas shopping on the 23rd, get it all done. But I would have a plan. I knew exactly where I would go to each store or at least what I wanted. And then I don't browse because browsing is what kills you on the last second shop. Like if you're buying a hoodie for Uncle Frank, you're not worried. Well, I can get it for $5 cheaper across the mall. Screw that. I'm in. I'm getting the hoodie. I'm out.
But I just don't understand. I guess the idea of personalized shopping, but
you can't order online now. It won't get
delivered. No, I know, but had you ordered it online on December 5th, it would have been to your house weeks ago. Yeah,
but that's if you're planning ahead. Young guys don't do that.
Yeah,
I'm usually pretty good. It's just this year, I don't know, life. I don't know. I was just lazy, if I'm being totally honest. But I'll get it done.
I don't like shopping online because if you don't you can't buy clothes for someone else. How do you I don't know.
Sure you can.
I can. I just don't do it. I'm because the worst is if you have to return it. I hate it. I'm like
that's why you just print the gift receipt and put it in the box, and you're like, hey, if you don't like it, I don't want to hear from you. Just do it yourself.
I try to find a gift that they don't return though. That to me is the then you show you put
good luck. You'd never be able to shop for my mom then.
Oh, she's a gift returner.
Big time gift returner.
Let's get her a gift card.
Now that's the thing. We this is the first year where we finally just said, you know what? No mas. You're getting a gift card.
Wow.
You guys ever have someone in your life who's the gift explainer? Like you open up the gift and then they got like a 4-minute spiel for you, but okay, So you might not like this, but here's why you might. It's a big thing in our family. Every gift you ever open, it's always like something weird from my mom. And she has like a pre-planned speech being like, okay, I know you didn't ask for this. I know you probably don't want it, but here's why I got it for you. It's a great thing.
Give me an example. What's the gift that she explained that you were like, oh my God?
Got a heated jacket one year, and it was like, I'm never gonna wear this. I do not want this. Why would I want this? And it was like, whoa. Now listen, here are like the 5 events in your life that I think you will use this. I mean, in some points, it's like, okay, you're going outside of the box a little bit, but it is like every single gift. It's like, all right. So I was walking by a clearance bin and I saw this thing on sale, half price. I thought maybe you'd like it. It's a bit.
Wouldn't you wear the heated jacket shoveling in -25? That'd seem like awesome.
My thing is the battery, and then you got to charge it. Who wants to remember to charge a jacket? It's too much. I'll just
Yeah, that's fair. See, I was thinking about that.
Does it
yesterday.
light up though? That would be awesome.
No,
Just like
there's
the-
a little button that lights up.
Yeah.
No.
But I was thinking ahead to the Eagles playoff games. I know. After the loss to the Commanders on Sunday, I mean, home playoff game. I mean, probably not in doubt, but I was thinking it could be really cold in January. They have a heated Eagles jacket. That would be pretty nice. And then I was like, same thing. I'm like, what if I lose the cable to charge it? Do you know how many cables we go through in this house with these kids? Hopefully someone is listening to this nodding and being like, yes. Honestly, we can't keep chargers straight. I feel like all I do, I'm buying an Apple charger every other week.
They just leave
Buddy?
it.
Yeah, leave it. I went to the next step of labeling the cords. Like, hey, like this is Christians, this is Grace, and like doesn't matter still. They're like, yeah, but I need it now.
Buddy, there's just we have like a chart. We have one place where you charge your stuff, and that's where the cords, and they don't come out of the wall.
They don't come out of the wall. So like, what if you
Like if you want to charge, like my son charges his iPad, he charges it right on that counter, and there's nowhere else he charges it.
But what if he wants to like lay in bed and play on his iPad while it's charging?
Well, he's not allowed his iPad in bed. He reads in bed.
Jeez, wouldn't want to live in that house. God.
Okay.
No.
Do you also make him put on his prison jumpsuit after he gets out of the shower or what?
Buddy, we'll send you a book on. No, my wife and I read a lot of the damages of online. So he's limited.
Trust me, it's like crack cocaine for these kids.
Yeah, no, but he's not. He doesn't have it in his room, and honestly, he's never had it in his room, so he never asked for it. Right? Like he has his book. He likes reading. We're lucky. He likes to read. So like there'll be days that I'll find him just sitting on the couch reading. It's unbelievable. So he likes to read, but he obviously likes video games as a kid.
They do read a lot in prison. So
yeah. Wow. Hey, you know what, man? It's like marriage, buddy. They're prison. You're doing time. So hey, he's doing time right now. It's all good.
All right. I got 3 questions for you guys. Fill in the blank, brought to you by Bet365. I know we've talked about them a ton, but I always like giving you guys a good addition of one word. So one word to describe the Buffalo Sabres season so far is blank. They have lost, 12 straight games. Basically, nothing's changed. 6 straight games in regulation, and they are now dead last they're tied with Chicago for dead last in the entire NHL. Frank, one word to describe the Buffalo Sabres season.
it would be so easy to say disaster because that's the first thing that comes to mind. But I think the word that I come to when thinking about how they could fix this or move it around is, I don't think scared is the appropriate word, but hesitant. Because that's what strikes me is when you've got a bunch of individual players that a lot of teams really like, whether it's Dylan Cousins or Bowen Byram or Jack Quinn, like go up and down their lineup. Like there's players that you could pluck from that team. And I know everyone always pretends to be offering the lifeline that's really disguised as an anvil. Everyone wants to help you dig out of the spot that you're in. So I get it from that perspective, but it just seems like the Sabres just like their players too much. And I think they haven't come to the conclusion or realization that as much as we like each of these individuals, the collection is just not doing it. And that's, I think, hesitant, tentative, any one of those words would work.
Yeah, mine was, as you started talking, almost like timid, right? Like even going back to the offseason, I know they made a big push for Marty Necas, but it was like, hey, they bought out Skinner, got all this cap space. What'd you do with it? They signed Jason Zucker. And I was like, okay, like fine, I guess, but a relatively safe play on like a 1-year deal for a vet. It just feels like they didn't make like a big swing, at least since last deadline. Greg's, your one word for the Sabres.
Dreadful. Like, come on. They're not even competitive right now. You go 13 games without a win. Sayonara, see again before Christmas. Like that, they don't even give their fans the opportunity to dream, go to sleep at night thinking about playoffs. Nothing, right? It's they basically have given their fans a lump of coal.
Yeah.
So one thing that came to my attention, and I don't know all the particulars because this stuff is all held pretty closely, but someone pointed out to me this week that they think one of the driving forces behind the Lindy Ruff hiring was that New Jersey's paying most of his freight this year. And I wonder how much any budgetary limitations, if any, pop into it.
They have a favorite child, the owners?
I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Frank got to talk about his Eagles, so I'll step in about my Bills. There was a joke online the other day that Josh Allen's contract might get restructured in the offseason, so that again, he wants to make more money. And someone like quote tweeted it and was like, the Sabres are going to be spending $30 million under the salary cap when this happens. Like, whatever. The Pagulas are dialed in on the Bills, not the Sabres, which I don't think is true, but the joke still lands.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, if you're cutting that many corners on a team that's missed, and then you're not cutting corners on the Bills, like, what are you doing?
I wouldn't even, like, that's the thing. I wouldn't suggest that they're cutting corners, but if that was even a 5% motivation to make the hiring, I don't understand it.
Yeah. Yikes.
Next one I got for you guys. How about Patrick Laine finds the back of the net once again? He's scored goals in 3 straight games. He's got 8 goals in 9 games now with the Montreal Canadiens. Your question, Patrick Laine will finish the year with blank goals. And just to make the math a little bit easier for you guys, 49 more games left on the schedule for the Habs, and he's already, again, at 8 goals in his first 9. Greg's, how many does Laine finish with?
Man, it's a great story to see a guy like that come back from all he's done, and he's just firing absolute lasers all over the place. I'm going to say Laine finishes with 34 goals.
34?
I was going to say 31. I mean, at some point there will be a dip, but I think he scores enough in bunches, and he's like already in the top 10 active players in hat tricks, believe it or not, which is kind of a crazy stat. And he's the only, like, I think he has the most since entering the league.
That
which is kind of crazy.
Like, the thing, Laine is one of those players, like, when he scores, you just see it. Like the great goal scorers are just like, oh, I want more. And there's so few of those guys who have the ability to do it. And when he's on his game, man, like his shot, like right now he's on that power play. The Habs, like, everybody knows where they're going, and it's like Ovi in his prime. Like, you knew where you were going, and now you still have to move it around and everything like that. But when he gets a chance, well, not only does he shoot hard, he's pretty accurate with it.
So he's 9th among active players with 11 hat tricks. And he has everyone else that's in that category. Like, he has 2 fewer than Crosby, who's been in the league a decade longer. 2 fewer than Malkin, 2 fewer than Stamkos. Like, he's a hat trick machine. He does score in bunches.
How many does Ovi have? Like 30 some?
Yeah, he has 31.
Yeah.
All right.
But still, like, the fact that Laine has almost as many as Connor McDavid, who was in the league 1 year longer. He's 1 back of McDavid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
missed a lot, and he's missed a lot of time.
Yep, and he's 2 back of Matthews, who entered at the same time.
Yeah, he's played almost 200 fewer games than Connor McDavid, which is surprising. All right, last one I got for you guys. Let's go out west to the playoff race. I got the odds up here from our friends at Bet365, but let me ask you guys, the Utah Hockey Club have a blank % chance of making the playoffs. Right now, by points percentage, they're just a hair back of the second wild card spot. So they are right in the mix thanks to a nice strong run, 7-1-2 in their last 10. Greg's % chance that Utah makes the playoffs.
Oh, God, it's a good question. So, they're battling Dallas and Vancouver. I think they could probably catch Calgary. I don't know if they catch anybody else. So, I won't say that high. I'll say like 41.
Right.
Sorry, what team was it?
Utah.
I was going to say I wanted to talk about them on the other side of your conversation because I think they're one of the best stories in the league. And by the way, you did the standings today without points percentage. So like Dallas is actually in the first wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Dallas is in third in the Central, believe it or not. So they're in fine shape. But Utah, like, given what they've been missing, I think they're just a really good team, and they've got tons of fight in them. Like what they've gotten out of Sergachev, and like you look at the minutes that he's been chewing up, and look at some of the other pieces on their team. Like look at the cap space they've got. I don't know. I think that team is actually pretty good. So I'd say I think Utah is on track to finish in 9th and just miss. But would I be shocked if they find a way to get in? No, I wouldn't.
Right now, Bet365, they have it as a pick'em, 50-50 on either side, -110 to make it, -110 to miss the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. What's interesting is that even though it's now December 23rd and they're still in the mix, Calgary doesn't get quite as much love. They're +260 to make the playoffs. And right now, they are technically ahead of Utah by 1 point. So always updating the odds over at Bet365. Boys, have a Merry Christmas. That is a wrap on this week's edition of Fill in the Blank.
Let's get to the second half of the pod, brought to you by Fountain Tire. If you're looking for tires, best place to go, fountaintire.com, because not only you can get tires, but also auto service, so you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service, because at Fountain Tire, they will give you both. They'll treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. If you need new tires, or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop in a Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. As always, Fountain Tire offers top quality tires and products from brands like Goodyear. Stop in a Fountain Tire or make your appointment at fountaintire.com. And Frank, when we talk about Utah, the biggest surprise really is the fact that Marino hasn't played all year. Sean Durzi played 4 games. So you think about a team that when the season began, and if you outline your team, those 2 guys are going to be in their top 4 defense, and they're gone. Like Sergachev has played amazing. They're getting good contributions. Dylan Gunther's playing great. Their goalie last year, Connor Ingram, kind of came back down to earth. Vejmelka has played very well. But really, their defense, and I don't know if we give their coach enough credit for being able, and the players, to say, okay, we're going to have to adapt here on the fly, and we're going to shuffle around our deck chairs on our defense. And they've been pretty good. Like, I don't know that many teams out there that can absorb losing 2 of your projected top 4 defensemen for basically the entire season so far.
Yeah, and then they bring up Maverick Lamoureux, who they're really excited about, first round pick from 2022, and he gets hurt, and he's been out. So really, I think the guy that hasn't gotten nearly enough credit for the season that Utah has had, he's been the glue that's kept this all together, and that's Olli Maatta. I couldn't believe that I would say those words a while back, but that trade that happened, it was October 29th. It flew under the radar. Olli Maatta for a 3rd round pick, and Utah had been scouring the market for a defenseman that could be a stopgap guy. And what they've seen from him, Bill Armstrong described him to me as an elite 5. And I go, oh, congratulations, like soft tampering. You just created a new phrase, an elite number 5. What does that even mean? was like, yeah, that's what I tell my wife. I've got an elite 5. But instead, he's been a huge part of their season. He's been able to chew up minutes. He's been reliable. He's been responsible. And he's no frills. Like, he's not going to give you any push at the offensive end, but he's been playing 22 minutes a night this season, which is like way higher than his career average. His career average is 18.25. So and he's only 30, by the way. It feels like he's been around forever. And because he's played on so many different teams, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Kings, Detroit, now Utah, it feels like he's been around forever, right? He's just steady. And I think that's been a big part of their year.
Well, you know what? Just having guys who are reliable, coaches will always tell you. They love to look down the bench and know, okay, this is what I'm going to get from this guy tonight. And right now, that's what some other coaches might say. Well, I didn't always know that. But in Utah, maybe it's the added responsibility. Some players are just like, okay, I want to show you I can do it. And he's done it. And collectively, they've at least given themselves a chance. Their fan base has to be excited. They look and say, hey, our team is right there for the playoff picture. And that's all you can ask for. I know it's a weird thing because they are technically a new franchise, Frank. They're in a new city. We all know that, their relocation, but it's a brand new, this is year 1. So, and technically in the history books, if they make the playoffs, it'll be a first year franchise makes the playoffs. So maybe it has an asterisk. Who knows? Who probably cares
It does.
at the end of it. But the fact that you can come into, that's the reason Vegas had their fans so engaged right away, is because they had success. And it's easy. They've done all the studies about why fans love a team, right? And, it gives you joy, it gives you excitement. Sometimes, obviously, there's pain and heartache and all that. But if you can have joy early on, it embeds in you, and it's a lot better chance for that to be long lasting. And I think that's what's happened to Vegas. And Utah comes in, and right now, their fans are happier more often than not, especially lately. And like, they go into Christmas break, they're thinking, geez, like, our team's right in this mix.
And I don't even know that they have the necessary proper context of like, hey, these are how big of the pieces we are that are missing.
Yes.
What the other thing that struck me being there for the first game was that it's an intensely proud region. And they feel like, aside from the joy and everything else, that this team gives them proper representation, that they feel like their market is seen and heard from, when, really for the most part, it's just been the Jazz, and, you've got the Utes, and you've got BYU, and you've got, that group of teams, Utah State. Like, other than that, that's it. So this kind of put them on a more major league stage that I think was desperately needed. And it was fun being there, and just, at a stoppage in play, like a video is explaining what offside is or what icing is. Like, you have to remember how new it is. And that part always brings people in because they want to see what it's like. They want to feel the energy. They want to understand it. But then what keeps them coming back is a connection to the team, which we just talked about with the representation, some personalities that they've been able to show, and then winning. And it's been a really nice combination for them in a year in which those guys go down. The wheels could have fallen. Those guys go down, and Connor Ingram plays as poorly as he has. The wheels could have easily fallen off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I give him a ton of credit, and
I think they're one of the best stories of the entire league in 2024.
Yeah, I would agree. What's interesting is this is probably going to be the first year, Frank, where we see Bill Armstrong in a position to add at the deadline. And I'm kind of curious to see what his approach is going to be.
I think if they're still in the mix, that you will almost certainly see them add, because not just for the reasons that we mentioned about grabbing a hold of the market, but also because they've got so many prospects on the way and so many picks that they've made, they can't possibly sign them all. And the big thing that they're wrestling with right now is, of the guys that we're signing, we better pick the right ones. and we better keep the right ones and move on from the ones that aren't the right ones. How can you, split the uprights there between guys that teams are still curious on that you could maybe sell high on? I think that's going to be an interesting dance.
Oh, well, and it's hard. Like, this is, you know what, your amateur and pro scouts combined together. Like, a lot of these guys are still amateur, really, in the sense. So you find out, okay, who do we like? And every scout will tell you, no one's able to pick all of those right. If you, okay, you know what, we got 6 or 7 really good prospects. Let's make sure we know for sure who the 4 best are going to be. If you could do that every time, you dominate, when it doesn't always happen. And so probably comes down to positioning a little bit. Like, hey, where can we afford? Maybe we got 4 really good left wingers, 3 really good right defensemen. I'm just throwing out positions here that, let's try to go from there. And then obviously it takes, what are other teams looking for at this point? But it's a different approach. And we've really never seen, Bill Armstrong's never been in this position to get to be aggressive and to not have to just stockpiling prospects and picks. And I think it's got to be,
I want to stress though,
fun for him too.
Probably going to be pretty measured. Like, they're not going to be, it's not going to be over the top. We're trading for the biggest name on the block. No, like, it's going to be much more like, man, we were in a really tough spot this year. We could go out and make a big splash, but maybe just for the time being, Oli Mata for a third makes sense. So I think it's just like their summer. They got Sergachev. That was the big splash, but the rest of it was very measured. And that was their big test for that inaugural summer. Was we still have all these picks and prospects. We've got all this cap space. As long as we don't hurt ourselves this summer, we'll be in good shape. And I think the same holds through for this trade deadline. Then you can get to this summer and begin to add a bit more on the trade market. Probably not through free agency, but on the trade market.
Yeah, well, and they've got a few UFAs. Oli Mata, funny enough, is one of them. You throw in Melka on the back end. You have Bukestad and Kerfoot, but a lot of their core guys are under contract. And Frank, they've been accruing. So they've the only issue is with Utah, really, and they've got cap space here if they want. Like, if they wanted to, the advantage they could do is they could acquire a player and not have to force the other team to retain salary, which then lowers the asking cost, right? And so that's a potential big advantage of a chip that you can play, where, because sometimes players, acquiring and retaining the cap space is you get an extra pick for it, and maybe whatever the team that does that. But if you're Utah and say no, you don't have to retain any cap space, we'll just take it all, that lessens the return, so you don't have to give up as much. And some of the top teams with no space, they don't have that option.
I think so if you were to ask me right now, like, I'm not talking like contenders, I'm talking teams that have mostly been out of the playoff picture. If you could pick one organization that's the most attractive to pick up and run, all things considered, like cap space, prospects, picks, everything that's in the pipeline, which team do you think you could make the necessary tweaks to make them a playoff team and cup contender? I can't think of another team that I'd pick before Utah. Can you?
That's a good question. I'd have to. So teams that aren't in the playoffs right now, does Ottawa count?
I mean, Ottawa's in the same kind of position as Utah, teetering on the edge of the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could pick Ottawa if you wanted to.
Yeah, they'd probably be one. Like Utah has so much that it's hard, right? Because they have even way more picks and prospects than Ottawa has. Ottawa's all their core is young. That's their advantage. And their goalie signed now for 4 more years.
But they've also got some contracts though that I don't like.
Which one?
I don't like the Thomas Chabot contract. I don't like the Josh Norris contract. There's not one guy on Utah Hockey Club whose contract I go, ooh, that one hurts.
Yeah. I think I've watched more Ottawa this. I think Thomas Chabot's game, Jensen's really helped him. He's eliminated. Well, not eliminated. He's reduced his big glaring errors this year. and
Okay.
that to
But
me
it's
is a
still
big
$8 million bucks. Like,
yeah. But he is man, he is such a dynamic player. Yeah, like he might be a mil overpaid. I don't know if it's. I think Shabbat could live up to that deal here now that they're a little bit more stable situation for them. But it's fair point. The only other one, Frank, that intrigues me a bit. Well, it wouldn't be as close, but if I had to pick like the next closest team, man, that Malcolm Celebrini and San Jose. Watch the Sharks, like, and their young
think
coach.
about how different that conversation has been. Just getting one, like, I mean, you don't have to rewind all that far for us to be talking about how poor the Sharks were positioned.
Yeah, but it's also, I wanted to say, not just I think their coach has made a big difference to that team.
Okay. Which is interesting because he was an assistant on the team before.
But when you're not the main guy, and because when you're the assistant, you still kind of have to follow the culture set out and the structure by the head coach. Now you can question things and have input, but it's still his team, right? And especially when you're a younger assistant coach like Wojciechowski was, it's not like he's coming in with 20 years of NHL coaching experience. So I don't know. I felt like talking to people around that organization and talking to some players when they were in town that he's how he delivers things has really resonated with the team. That's the one thing I got. His communication skills, Frank, seem to be now maybe, you're on a group that has people and they're sick of losing. So they're more attentive. Maybe that's part of it too. Right. I think Tyler Toffoli's come in and add a level of professionalism to that group as well. Right. Like they got rid of a lot of
I
other
just
guys.
don't like their cap situation though.
Well, hey, that's totally fair.
Their retained salaries are chewed up for a while for the most part.
Yeah.
I do love that they have Sam Dickinson coming. That's going to be a huge piece. And you're starting to see Shakir Mukhamadullin start to make his mark. I mean, like Couture obviously not playing, but that's not a great situation with that contract.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's ever going to play again.
Vlasic. I mean, so there's tons to, so, okay. So you're going to pick Ottawa.
Yeah, I would pick Ottawa.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd go Utah. Now here, let's flip it and do the inverse of this. Which team out of the playoffs do you think is the situation you'd want the least?
Oh, that's a good question. The least. You know what? This might surprise them. Well, the Islanders, because they don't have many prospects and they're getting older. So I would have them, and then might surprise some people, but I don't know. Where's Detroit going?
See, my answer would be the Seattle Kraken.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
I mean, we've had this debate, so like no need to pile on, but who's the piece that lifts them out of the mess? Like you could at least make the argument with Detroit. Like we still don't like, we're still kind of
Sider's a really good player.
Yeah. And so Simon Edvinsson and I'm interested to see what Kosa does. And like, I think they've got some intriguing pieces. I guess I'm just not seeing it with the Kraken.
Yeah, no, Seattle's a good one because they don't yeah. And
like even
Seattle's
Nashville, I think Nashville, as painful as their situation is, I think with a slightly different mix and a reboot that they might have a bounce back season next year.
Yeah. Well, once I said it, Seattle is basically the Islanders of the West. Right? They're kind of mirrored.
I said that on the pod a few weeks ago. I said I made that exact. I said, tell me why the Kraken aren't the Islanders of the West.
Because the Islanders do have Brock Nelson and Paul Mary's contracts are done this year, but so you get $11 million in cap space, Frank. But what are you going to do? Go overpay on some free agents, right? Because not very often, and Nashville can be a great example. Just because you quote win the summer doesn't mean anything. So I just the Islanders in Seattle. Now that you say it, that's probably a fair pick in East and West.
St. Louis wouldn't be that far away from me either.
I don't mind the Blues. They got some decent young guys. I still like Kyrou and Thomas. And
do you still call them young guys?
Well, those guys are like, what are they, 25?
Yeah, 24, 25. Like,
yeah. You know,
I mean, after this
Broberg.
much time in the league, like I'm sorry, like you don't count as young anymore. Kairu's
Yeah.
26. Kairu's
What does he have?
26 and has played 400 NHL games.
Yeah, he's got a like 75, 80 point seasons, right? Like
Robert Thomas is 25 and a half.
Yeah.
And he's played 420 NHL games. Like I'm that
they
doesn't
have
count
played
as
a
young
lot.
anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess
Jake
younger. Like
Neighbors counts as
they're not
young.
30, I guess, right? Like you could still get a few good years out of those guys, but the Blues back end to me is the fascinating part of that conversation. Like they got a lot of the same guys that are paid a lot of money. What are they doing there?
And they're old.
Yes. Yeah, like they'll have to try to, like, that's why Broberg, I get why they went after Broberg. They needed some youth on their back end desperately. And he's a youthful guy who can play. So that helps them. But that is their defense core is the most fascinating watch over. Like, I don't know if like what Krug status is, hopefully he comes back and plays. But I just, some of the additions they made, like even getting Cam Fowler, it's like, well, it's kind of just more of the same, isn't it?
It is to me.
Yeah. So
unless you think Fowler can just be totally rejuvenated and get to another level, which is possible.
Yeah. Or you trade him. But like at least Thomas and Kyrie look and say, okay, we got some 75, 80 point players here. Seattle has none of that. So
that's why they were the first round pick.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with Seattle is, Frank, like right now, like they're
into oblivion again. Like I know they've lost 5 in a row and they might slide a little bit, but where are they going to be picking? 8, 10?
Yeah. Like they've got they would have, for Seattle to have success, Kraken fans, you want your team to be battling with Chicago. That's just the truth. But I don't know if they want to go there, right? Like I know I've heard this, NBA stuff. I'm like, NBA, schmNBA. Build your organization you can win. Right now you can't win. You're just going to be average to below average. Trust me, that's going to piss your fans off way longer than if you give them some excitement in the next few years. But you can't, I don't think you can build, and won't the owners of the Kraken own the NBA team?
Probably not. I don't know.
Yeah. So it seems odd to me to worry about an NBA team. And that's your focal point of your NHL team. Like they got to have a plan. I don't love their plan. So it's a good one. Frankie, have yourself a great Christmas. Do you have any specific food like Christmas morning that you look forward to that you don't have any other time of year?
No.
Really?
No. No, I was in charge of appetizers and drinks this year. We're hosting Christmas Eve.
Okay.
I went ham on the appetizers.
Oh,
got a little antipasta, a little goat cheese salad. We have some pot stickers. I did buffalo chicken egg rolls.
You made these?
No. Well, I ordered them, but it's my job to order them and then pick them up. Okay. Look, I'm not taking any credit. I'm just saying I was in charge of the menu.
Oh, okay. Well,
cheesesteak egg rolls.
Yeah.
We got a shrimp tray.
Yeah. So we have a lot of this. Yeah, we have the shrimp tray, but like we have the big Christmas Eve dinner with my family and all my siblings and stuff we host, which is great. And it's, ham and mashed potatoes and some yams and some steamed broccoli and celery. Then we have the shrimp roll. Then
Were you just touting steamed broccoli?
Buddy, I love steamed broccoli. So good.
Like it wouldn't come, not that I hate it, but like I would never brag about it.
Well, I know. I just like steamed broccoli and steamed carrots together. It's great. And then, but the big one is the breakfast. Like I'm in charge of the Christmas breakfast. So I have bacon and then I have these special cinnamon rolls that we get for like one time a year from this place in town, Sinazeo. Oh my God, they're so good. And they have tons of icing on them. And so you heat them up in the oven the morning of, they're like, they're just like, they fall apart. They're so good. So,
but only you keep it and resist buying them again only on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
That's the secret, maybe.
Oh yeah, because then
I wouldn't be able to control myself if something that good was in town that you could have multiple times.
It never used to be a problem.
Why do you need to wait till Christmas?
It never used to be a problem until I moved our station our station's now in West Ed because the Sinazeo location is literally one floor below me. I have to walk by it. Like Frank, I'm telling you, it is the toughest personal, like to walk by that thing and not have one. Now, I will, when we moved in and then we started our station there last year, I did have some in September because people delivered them. I'm like, okay, well, I had one, but it wasn't
See?
heated up
You
in the oven.
can't tell your family that.
Oh, no, they knew it. I told them. I was like, hey, but I haven't had one this year. And so, and they're not heated up because that's the thing. Like
That
anything
almost feels
fresh,
like cheating.
anything fresh comes out right out of the oven. It's warm. The icing is almost
All right,
melted just a bit.
stop.
Oh, so good. So good. Well, everybody have a great Christmas. Hopefully you get to see your family and your friends. And we will chat with you next Monday because, of course, we are off for Boxing Day. And we will be there. So all the best from Seravalli, Rempe, and Gregor here, as well as Pat Puff, who runs all the stuff behind the scenes for the DFO Rundown, brought to you by Fountain Tire and Bet365. Remember, use the promo code NATION at Bet365.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.